the way that data plays a big part in this is first, zero-party data, whatever you want to call it, like that is a driver of so much insight into who your customers are, and understanding who your customers are is the first step. And then building that experience based on what they need and what's going to make their lives easier is going to be like the thing that can't be reproduced by your competitors.
I'm thrilled today to have our guest, Cherene Aubert, on the show. Cherene is head of growth at Bobbie. Cherene, you want to say hi to our listeners?
Hey, everybody. How's it going? Super excited.
Great. Bobbie has been a longtime customer of Simon, maybe not tremendously long, but at least a couple of years now, I believe. And Cherene and I were catching up the other day. And today's episode is actually, I think, incredibly exciting from my perspective. Because Bobbie went through a very sort of transformative time where they had to make some huge changes to their marketing team. And today, we'll be digging into what Cherene and her team learned during that time, and really answering a lot of questions that I'm sure many folks listening to this show have asked, but just don't have the resources or don't have the situation really to even answer. And fundamentally, today's big question is bigger than normal. And really revolves around what's driving your marketing. In fact, why did Bobbie actually shut off all their marketing channels not too long ago and all their strategies one at a time? It seems pretty crazy. And furthermore, what did Cherene and the Bobbie team learn as they did this around really moving the needle? So before I sort of keep everyone in suspense for any longer, Cherene, maybe you can provide some context around the business and why Bobbie found themselves in this situation where they even considered doing such a crazy thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's attribution is such a hot button topic in marketing, and there are so many tools and methodologies for attribution, but peeling back your marketing levers one by one and creating true holdouts is really, really insightful. And I'll give you the story of how we came to that. It all starts with what industry we're in. We are an infant formula company. And to understand how this all went down, you have to understand the industry. We're in a duopoly. There's two main companies at the top of the industry, and there's very high barrier to entry to enter the industry. And there's limited supply. There's a limited number of manufacturers, and it's really hard to manufacture and produce infant formula. You can't just overnight it from another country. There's lots of regulations. So what happened at the beginning of 2022 is one of these two companies had a recall, and they were about 40% of the whole supply in the market was wiped off of the shelves overnight. And many of you may have heard of the infant formula shortage that happened and peaked in 2022. There was no formula on the shelves. There was very, very limited supply. It became a national crisis. The White House ended up flying formula overseas from other countries to fill the supply gaps. Not every business is going to face that kind of supply issue, but businesses every day do have to manage their supply and demand very carefully and pivot their strategies to serve their customers. And so we found ourselves in a situation where demand absolutely blew up overnight, skyrocketed, and we used data to really inform a lot of our strategy in being able to preserve our inventory. So by using data, we were one of the few, maybe the only infant formula company in the industry to not run out of formula for our subscribers.
That's great. I'm sure it was stressful at times to meet the demand of your customers to make sure that it sort of worked from end to end. Maybe you can go a bit deeper into the process. What did you shut off? What did you learn? And what did that look like?
Yeah, it all started with having a really strong data infrastructure to be able to forecast well. So we look at data every day. We use it every day. We use it to forecast, and we immediately saw a spike in demand that put us well beyond our forecast. And I think in that first week, we knew that something was off, and we could see months ahead from that first week. In May is when the industry kind of hit the peak, the supply constraint across the whole country. And in February, March, we could see far ahead into May and June based on our forecasting. and know that we were going to run out of inventory if this trend continued. So that was the first piece. It's like having good enough data to be able to forecast your supply and demand. And then the second piece is understanding that our demand was beyond what we had projected. We had to slowly peel back in stages every one of our marketing levers. And we started with what we thought was the biggest driver of demand. So we're like, okay, our paid media, our TV advertising, those are the biggest drivers of immediate demand. So we're going to shut those off. That was stage one. That didn't really make a dent, which was super surprising. I think, like, you know, if you're to pull a group of growth marketers, they might say, yeah, paid media is the one thing that's accelerating demand the most. So we should shut that off first. That's what we thought. No dent. We went through line by line, channel by channel. We started turning off brand acquisition. We turned off partnerships. We started turning off our low-hanging retention marketing, started turning off upsell, cross-sell, abandoned cart emails, all the way until the point of we turned every marketing lever off and we had to enable a wait list, and we could no longer accept new customers, but we maintained our subscription business and we allowed our subscribers to continue receiving their products.
Yeah, I'm sure listeners are asking, I don't understand. You were paying for Google AdWords and your AdWords console there showed you that you spent $2 on a click. And then shortly thereafter, someone certainly spent $20 on some baby formula. Yeah, that seems like some pretty good ROAS. I don't understand why, if you would shut this off, why nothing would change. So maybe you can talk about the dynamics here and how they were specific to Bobbie, and also how they might generalize to other brands and other situations.
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. I think part of the uniqueness of the situation was a little bit of scarcity economics in play. I mean, the lack of supply was driving higher demand than what the market had available. So it went beyond advertising. It went beyond marketing. It went to like actual need. And through removing all of those levers, like all of that demand became organic. When we look at the split between paid versus organic demand during that time period, we could see obviously a major drop off in paid new customers, but the influx of organic new customers was still high. When we looked at our new customer revenue, we could start to see that once we started pulling back our marketing effort, our new customer revenue did start to decline, but there was really one lever out of all of the marketing levers that slowed demand the most. And I think this is the biggest reveal for me, is in looking at all of our growth and marketing levers, I had a good guess of like, okay, if I turn off ads and email, that's going to drive demand down the most. We're going to be safe. We don't have to worry. This whole thing's going to blow over. We don't have to shut down our site. That's what I would have thought. But we went through lever by lever, pulled everything back. And there was really one thing that drove demand down the most. It was trial offer. And this is like reversing this principle. This is what I would recommend to most businesses who want to drive demand up, is have understand how your customers make their purchase, and two, have a really, really incredible introductory offer to the brand, an acquisition product or an acquisition offer. That was the thing that once we removed that trial offer, we saw our organic demand decrease. We saw fewer people acquired to the brand. We did see AOV increase. So our revenue, continued to grow, but it reduced or increased the barrier to new customer acquisition. And for us, a trial product is, you have to understand how people make a baby formula purchasing decision. This is different for every business. So every business has a version of this, but in infant formula, the parents want to make sure that the baby can actually tolerate the product. So a trial is our best way to get that, acquisition and retention on lock. I think, if it was a soda business, it might be like a sample pack, or if it was a snack business, it might be a sample pack. If it's a makeup or perfume business, it might be a sample, a set of samples. It's basically like that thing that reinforces to the person that is the product that they want. I think for Warby Parker, it's you try before you buy. You get 5 glasses before you're actually, before you actually convert. That same principle is a really strong driver of acquisition, and everything else is just a vehicle to get people to that offer.
No, that's fascinating. And I guess when you shut it off, I guess you saw conversion rates decrease, site to purchase.
Exactly. That offer was a big driver of higher conversion rate. It was a big reducer of customer acquisition cost. And so, yeah, removing that definitely created a hurdle to entry.
It's very interesting. And I think, for some of these marketing channels, you can run an experiment to shut them off. It's much harder to run an experiment around paid advertising because you're just targeting random people, and doing that properly in a holdout context, where some customers see it, some don't, is tricky to execute well. But I think certainly around trial offers, there are ways that we've seen, at least other customers and folks more broadly in the market shut these things off, for maybe half of traffic or something to see what the effect of conversions are. But certainly for a product like baby formula, which is an important decision, and also something where you can read as much as you can online and you can look at the pictures, but you definitely want to experience it. And similar products around food, and other categories that you mentioned as well. But I wouldn't have guessed that, but now that you sort of you mentioned it, makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think when you look at our revenue numbers from when that product was removed, you don't actually see a big dip in sales because it's offset by the increase of AOV once a product like that or an offer or discount like that is removed. But the actual number of new customers acquired, you can see a meaningful hit.
That's fascinating. So maybe we can talk about moving forward. Obviously now the baby formula shortage is over. Bobbie leveraged the time to grow the brand, grow awareness, educate customers, give away a few free trials until you stop doing that. And now there's a bit of a larger presence. What is your marketing strategy today? Are you spending on paid? Are you doing CRM? How do you think about this now that we're sort of in a more steady state situation?
Yeah, I think the best outcome that I've learned is a little bit philosophical, backed with all of the marketing tactics. So it's really, really understanding the consumer behavior for your audience specifically. How are they making a purchasing decision? What is the most important thing to them when they make their first purchase? And now knowing truly the impact of that offer, we're driving, and this sounds, it sounds obvious, but it's a balance between getting people into a trial, getting people into a higher AOV first order, getting people into a subscription. All of those things kind of compete. But now that we know for certain that a really strong introductory offer is the driver of so much success for acquisition, we're incorporating that into as a call to action into everything we do for customer acquisition. Right. The next piece is like understanding what's the natural next purchase. How do we not experience drop off from people who just wanted to try and it was maybe not like the best experience. So continuing that seamless experience, how do you make it as easy as possible for someone to get into that next purchase without them thinking, without them working too hard? And this is where a lot of the segmentation and the CRM, email and SMS marketing, making sure that those two channels are really talking together and there's a clear and concise journey between those two channels and built for the customers who came in from that acquisition product, like having that seamless first to second order happen. And then I think it's like understanding and making this all make sense financially. And it's not, I think another big takeaway is like, don't just go and immediately like discount all of your products by 50%. That's not going to make sense for your bottom line, but try to understand like specifically what should that first order offer look like and make most sense for the majority of people and make sure it makes sense financially and get it into a second purchase as quickly as possible.
Yeah, no, and that's a theme we see across the market very broadly. Actually, just had an episode very recently on the podcast. We had Mayor Gupta on, who's CMO at Kraken, which is one of the second biggest crypto exchange after Coinbase. And he made the comment around, look, he's not trying to go after customers who are trying to get rich quick. He's trying to incentivize people to use their crypto offerings for the right reasons. And in some sense, the question to ask around the free trials is, look, you're not trying to motivate people with the discount. You're trying to educate people, and find a price point in which they're willing to educate themselves, in exchange for something which they feel is worth a shot. And it's yes, you can look at the conversion funnels, and you should look at the conversion funnels, but ultimately you need to put yourself, in the shoes of a parent, who's under a budget and trying to understand, options in front of them and say, hey, like, sure, I'll spend $15 or I'll spend $30 and try something out, but really make sure that it doesn't feel too heavily discounted, to the point where they say, oh, well, I could go to the Target, but I'll get a couple months for free here, and I won't have to, I can save a trip next time down the road.
100%. And I think it's so obvious when you say it and when you think about it, but so many businesses don't really prioritize the customer experience, or don't really personalize the customer experience based on who they know the customer to be. And this is so cliche, but Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, they've been quoted so many times saying that you have to be customer obsessed, and they built massive businesses on the backs of designing for the optimal customer experience. And I think, the way that data plays a big part in this is first, zero-party data, whatever you want to call it, like that is a driver of so much insight into who your customers are. And understanding who your customers are is the first step. And then building that experience based on what they need and what's going to make their lives easier is going to be like the thing that can't be reproduced by your competitors.
That's 100% right. And I think, what a topic that we always talk about on the show, is look, data needs to inform a perspective and opinion and intuition you have on your customers. As soon as data drives the bus, then in some sense, you're building a soulless, non-customer centric marketing function. And if you're unable to put yourself in the mindset of your customers, then you're at a distinct disadvantage around really thinking about how to educate, how to drive your customer experience across acquisition and retention.
100%. And I think that's like one of the most, the other important thing that we're doing is really nailing that funnel. Like, now that we know for sure, it's not, let's spend more in ads, spray and pray approach. Let's not just do, 100 more partnerships or influencers. Let's strategically drive people into this funnel that we've identified is really strong for our business. And then let's make sure that the retention marketing is so tight that it's like a no-brainer to become a repeat purchaser.
All right, Cherene, time for our final question as we're approaching the bottom of the show here. If you could have this conversation again with anyone in the world, who would it be and why?
Oh man, I would have to have this conversation with whoever was in my position during the great toilet paper shortage of 2020 that we have all survived through. I would really want to understand what they were going through during the same situation.
Yeah. No, that would be fascinating. I know that there was a little bit of press coverage. I remember, reading from, some execs who were like, we're not going to, manufacture more product because it's going to pass. But at the same time, it was a real sort of run for the bank. So I'm sure most people remember.
Oh yeah. It's crazy.
Great. All right. Well, thank you, Cherene, for coming on our podcast today and sharing your wisdom with us. Really, when I reflect on this conversation, it really gets to the heart of a question that absolutely every marketer asks themselves at the end of the day. There's an old adage in advertising that I know that half my dollars are working, I just don't know which half. And I think this is a pretty awesome case study, where Bobbie, and Cherene and the Bobbie team rather were able to unpack this and really get some real insight into what's moving the needle, and really force themselves to unpack the entire funnel, the process, the customer experience. And the coolest thing is that it's completely reframed strategies moving forward. So I'd encourage everyone listening at home to ask, what is the one thing around your marketing strategy that's really moving the needle above all else, and just going through that thought experiment. Obviously, it's going to be hard to actually execute on these set of experiments that Bobbie ran, but it doesn't prevent anyone from using their own creativity and doing some thinking while they're taking a shower. But Cherene, anyone Any listeners on the show want to learn more about Bobbie or maybe open roles on your team, maybe you can give a quick plug.
Yeah, absolutely. I am pretty active on Twitter. Cherene Aubert is my handle. You can find me on LinkedIn, and Bobbie is hiring. So please check out our site. Lots of great career opportunities.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Jason.
And of course, any parents with newborns, my kids are 4 and 7, so it doesn't mean that if I gave them a bottle of Bobbie, they wouldn't drink it up immediately, but we're past that age. But any parents with newborns who want to try out the product, what is it, Bobbie.com? What's the?
Hi, Bobbie.
Yeah. Any parents with newborns, go to hibobbie.com and you can get your discounted trial or free trial. Great. And thank you to everyone listening to this episode of the Data Unlock podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Simon Data, please visit us on the web at simondata.com or email us at hello@simondata.